Okay, let's talk about how to actually get something out of college. There's a novel idea. So, just by brief backstory, college debt is, I think it's more than $1.3 trillion. Defaults climb every time they're released. About half of kids who graduated in the last couple of years are working in jobs that do not even require a college degree. And I get this all the time from parents, and I admit sometimes Pearl and I feel this way too. It's just not the same. It's not the way things were when we went to school. Well, this is how things are. No, this is actually from The Onion. This this kills me. No, what we're really going to be talking about is college really an investment? What does that mean as opposed to an expense? Well, an investment means that there should be some sort of return on your investment that's greater than what you put into it. It also means you should get this investment for the lowest price possible, which is grants and scholarships, which is not what we're going to be talking about here. For those of you who don't know me and Pearl, which I recognize is quite a few, I've written a couple of best-selling books. We're in the media frequently. We do a lot of public speaking, and we are college admissions and financial aid consultants. But the real reason that I got into this field, or almost in effect it chose me, was because I had my own really bad experience with debt. I had about $100,000 of loans between college and law school that led to all sorts of credit problems and stress and all sorts of stuff that I don't really want to bore you with right now. Today's kids are graduating with much worse obstacles ahead of them. I know of clients who are graduating with double or triple or even quintuple the amount that I graduated with into an economy that is kind of lousy. So that's why we're in this field, and that's why we look at college as being not so much about the 4 years, but about preparing for kids' post-college lives. That's how we look at it, and I recognize that is different than how most people think about college. So you have to ask these questions. What is life going to be like in 5 years? What careers will be hot? Keep in mind that today's biggest companies, many of the top 5 in terms of market cap and those that are up and coming, were only formed in the relatively recent past. Uber has a multi-billion-dollar valuation for some reason. And who knows if these companies are even going to be around in 5 or 10 years. Maybe the next Amazon or Uber will come along. So how can college prepare our kids for a job that hasn't even been invented yet? And I answer this question by sort of backing into it. So one of the first things I look at is, what do employers want? And here's a short list. This is in response to polls and in response to actually found in a book that I'll mention here. They want to see curiosity, creativity, grit, digital awareness, and contextual thinking, and humility. That's a big one. We're not going to talk about all these in the interest of time, but I do recommend There Is Life After College by Jeff Salingo. He's one of my favorite authors in this space. Are employers getting what they want? Well, 11% of business leaders said colleges prepared grads to be successful in the workplace. Hey, 11%. That's pretty crappy. According to results of a little-known test, the Collegiate Learning Assessment Test, 40% of seniors graduating college are deficient in the complicated or complex reasoning skills that employers want. And the CLA is a test that will measure growth in critical thinking from when you start college to 2 years in, and then from 2 years to 4 years in. After 2 years, 45% shows zero improvement. After 4 years, 36% shows zero improvement. And then overall, almost half don't show the level of skill that employers want. Let's talk about curiosity, because I think that's a big one. The future belongs to kids who are always going to learn on their own, lifetime learners, not to kids who have been told what to think and what to learn or syllabused through their lives, because the real world does not work like that. School works like that. School will basically, you go to school and you're told, here's what to do now, here's what you do next, get it done, then we'll tell you your next assignment. But your real life is not about completing assignments. It's about creating your assignments, about going above and beyond, about assigning yourself the next task. Too many kids graduate school and they have no idea, they get a job and they have no idea what to do unless they're being told what to do. The problem with school, and I mean high school and even younger, is that it works. It was actually designed right before the Industrial Revolution or during it to get us off the farm and into the factory and teach us how to sit docilely in one place and listen to authority who's teaching the class. And then a little bell rings, you shuffle on. Your learning all the way through has been directed by other people, and you're rewarded for raising your hand and getting the question right. You're not rewarded for asking questions. And this is a big reason why many psychologists feel that kids, they start out asking a million questions when they're younger, and by the time they get through high school, whether it's because of the teaching or because of peer pressure or a combination or other stuff, they stop asking questions. They're not encouraged to ask questions. And that's a big bummer, but it has really crappy implications. So getting back to what this means in terms of what employers are looking for, they know that there could be more than one right answer. And employers need employees who can deal with this ambiguity, because life is not a math problem with just one solution. There could be 5 right answers. And the skills that you have learned in the past, whether it's high school, college, or in your new training, and the new job, the new training curriculum, those skills might be obsolete within 5 years. So the key to being successful is taking control over your learning, being curious, and being a self-educator. There's a great speech a few years ago to the USC Law School class by Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner in Berkshire Hathaway. And it's posted right here on my website, collegeplanningGuru.com/Munger. I made my older kids watch it. I really recommend you do the same. One of Munger's greatest lines was, he said, you'd be surprised at how many hours a day Warren Buffett just sits on his ass reading. So if it's good enough for the wealthiest guy in the world, or one of the top 3 wealthiest guys in the world, I think we can all take a lesson from that. Here's something else, grit. Many employers would rather hire a kid from a failed startup because of the lessons learned that you don't get in college, such as learning how to find customers, listening to positive and negative feedback, working your butt off, taking risks, and failing. The lessons you learn from failure are frequently more powerful than anything else you could have learned. And you don't get this in the traditional educational system. Many of today's kids cannot prioritize tasks out of fear that they'll make the wrong decision because they've been supervised since their days on the playground. Kids don't play by themselves anymore, and they don't play in situations where they can go off and build a fort by themselves in the woods or light fires or do things like that. They're all in these fairly identical playgrounds with the rubber flooring, the reconstituted rubber tires stuff, and the plastic blocks and the safe slides and all that. And I guess, I get that point. I think it's great that apparently there's more safety, although the accident statistics don't bear that out. But what you give up is teaching kids how to be independent, creative, and work things out on their own. Humility. Many college grads have been conditioned to avoid failure, so they're never met with it. They don't know how to deal with it, or they've never had part-time jobs when they were in high school where they worked with people of different ages and perspectives away from mommy and daddy and got actual feedback. Sometimes, again, not positive feedback. So many arrive in the workplace a lot cockier than previous generations of workers, and they think they're basically ready to run the company before they've paid their dues. And this is coming, again, not from me, but from polls and from employers. Many of them lack basic communication skills that involve things besides texting and messaging, and they don't have the ability to deal with negative feedback. And when they do get it, they feel unhappy, and sometimes they switch jobs. I've heard anecdotally, a handful of stories over the last couple of years about exactly that. So I want to talk to you about how to pick schools and how to maximize college ROI. So the first step is understanding how you are wired. The next is matching up this information with majors and careers. Then you identify colleges that are reputable in these areas. You speak to department heads and career centers and other personnel at these colleges. And then you've got to intern. Practice. Let's talk about wiring. How many people do you know who are working jobs that they just hate or they're just not suitable for? Everyone has friends like this. Well, you don't have to, if you're a kid today, it's on you if you allow this to happen to yourself. If you follow someone else's directives like your parents or peer pressure or whatever, understand that is a choice. We have so many tools that are available, and I'll talk to you about what we use in our practice a little bit later if we have time. But understanding your wiring, put another way, is learning how to ask the right questions about yourself. meaning what situations are going to be good for you to succeed, what situations are going to be detrimental to you, and therefore you should avoid them, that type of thing. Because what you're good at, what you show aptitude for, may not be something that you love doing. It may not match what you're wired to do. 3 quick stories, people who went through our process. One of the first kids that who went through this, his name is Greg, and he wanted to be an ER doctor, and he went through our process, and it turned out that our career counselor, Julie, who I think may be on this call, she told him that, medical school is going to be a great thing for you because you test well, it's very important to you to help other people. However, you are a slow, deliberate decision maker. You should not be in the ER. So he's probably still going to go into medicine, but he knows now not to go into ER. The second example, Julia, she was someone we worked with more recently, and she was going to apply to a top Ivy League school in engineering. However, once we went through the process with her, it was painfully evident to her parents and her that engineering would be a really bad field for her to pursue because of how she was wired. And what she ended up doing was reconsidering, and she went actually to her teacher who taught her engineering in high school, and the teacher said, "Oh, good. I don't think you should go into that field." And this teacher was about to write a letter of recommendation, for Julia. And Julia said, "Well, why didn't you tell me that before?" And the teacher said, "Well, I didn't want to burst your bubble." But yeah, I agree. So in this case, it confirmed something that people knew but just didn't want to say to her. And the last example, Danny, her family wanted her to go into their family business, which was they own a pharmacy in Long Island. And Danny, when I was talking to her one-on-one and we were talking about her college list, there were several colleges that were pharmacy schools, and I said to her, "What's up with these schools?" And she said, "Yeah, well, my mom put them on here. I just don't want to fight with her about it." I said, "You know what? That's fine. You don't have to fight. Let's go through our career and major assessment exercise. Let's see how you're wired." And lo and behold, because she does not like science, she does not test well in the sciences, and there are other reasons, this going to pharmacy school would be a terrible career for her. Now, she might go into a business field and run the family business, but she should not be a pharmacist, and everyone agreed with that conclusion as well. So those are just 3 examples about wiring. Now, matching your majors and careers. Understand that it's common to switch majors. 80% of kids change majors. It's normal to not know exactly what you want to do with the next 40 years of your life, which is why many colleges tell you not to choose a major until at least after your first year. It's kind of weird to choose something going into school unless you've done this type of introspective work that I mentioned before. So our game plan, our goal is for every kid to pick some hopefully overlapping majors and careers and explore them before you go to college and while you're in school, because if you end up changing majors, again, the chances are that you will, then hopefully they're within the same type of area. You don't have to scrap all the credits you've already earned and take a whole set of new ones. And we always recommend, and this is something we actually do for our clients, but if you want to do this on your own, you check the Bureau of Labor statistics to see what prevailing thought is about whether the business is in growth mode or decline or something in between. Here's some other sources that I look at: payscale.com, College Scorecard, and then something new is called Educate to Career. I think the website is, actually I don't know if it's new. It's new to me. I think it's educatetocareer.org. That is a great site also that measures the effectiveness of colleges with certain majors. So those are some tips right there. And by the way, I will give you copies of these slides. I know I'm moving fast. Identify colleges reputable in these areas that you are now interested in. Some good sources are Fisk's, the Princeton Review. Books are usually pretty good. U.S. News and World Report, I think, is pretty good. A book that a lot of guidance counselors use but parents have never heard about is called Rugg's Recommendations. I think that's a great book. I rely on that almost daily in my practice. It doesn't matter, but a little segue here, but does it really matter if you're going to an ultra-competitive school? Well, some people study this. There's been a series of studies by Kruger and Dale, who are 2 economists. One's at Princeton, one's, I can't remember the other, she might be at the Federal Reserve or something. And they did a couple of studies. One study matched up 2 sets of kids who each got into an Ivy or ultra competitive school, and one set went to that ultra competitive college, and the other set did not. And after 10 years, their earnings were identical. The next study that they did, I thought was even more interesting. 2 sets of kids with similar grades and scores applied to the set of Ivy and competitive schools and other schools. One set got in, one set did not get admitted. Yet again, after 10 years, their earnings were pretty much the same. So these 2 studies indicate more about a kid's ability to do the work, how they view themselves. And it's not so much what college they go to, it's what they put into the college. I think those are the easy conclusions to make. I'm not sure it matters whether you're going to an Ivy League school, particularly if you're going to major in a STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math type of major. There is really even less evidence that it matters at all where you go if you're going to pursue one of these types of careers. My answer is that there are some, I'm not naive about it. There definitely are some types of careers where it helps you to have that network of other, kids from elite colleges. So from elite backgrounds who also go to an Ivy League school, because networking is really important. So, for example, if you're going to go into finance on Wall Street compared to teaching, then it starts to make sense to pay up for the more expensive school. That indeed is what's going to happen. But I have a hard struggle when people say, well, I got into, not Harvard, but we got into Loyola, and we also got into Oneonta or some local state school. Is it worth paying the extra $25,000 a year to go to Loyola? My kid's not sure what he wants to do. He may go into business. And my answer is, I don't know, $25,000 a year times $100,000, that's a lot to make up, especially if you're going to be taking on debt either in the student's name or parent's name or whatever. So I struggle with that one. I don't think there's an easy answer, but I always go with the least, maybe it's just the way I'm wired. Maybe I'm cheap or something. I just go for the least expensive one. All right, step 4, perform due diligence with schools' department heads, professors, upperclassmen, and career centers. So in other words, go beyond the info session, go beyond the $1 Million Walk or the college tour. Ask questions. You can ask upperclassmen, what type of access to professors do you get? Are they available only during office hours? Is that adequate? Are there more opportunities? Do these professors, they pump you up? Are they good at teaching? Do they make you excited to learn? Or are they just sort of phoning it in because they have to teach and they're really there for other purposes because they're tenured? They'd rather just research and write stuff that no one reads. What are the internship opportunities? You could ask everyone, this department heads and career center personnel, anyone else, what companies recruit on campus, who shows up. What happened to people who majored in what I'm considering doing last year? What about 2 years ago? Where are they now? This is kind of an interesting question. I try to explain this. I don't know the right way to explain this, and not every kid can pull this off, but I think a great question to ask, and you could ask this even to an admissions officer, but certainly department heads as well. You could say something like, I love this school. Let's say it's, Duke. I love everything I've learned about Duke, and I'm fascinated by it. I know I'm going to apply here. I may even consider applying an early decision here. I really want to go here pretty badly. But I have to admit, once I review everything, the websites and all the other information that's published by each school, I have a very hard time trying to distinguish one from the other just based on what's at the high level superficially. So how would you say Duke is different than some of the other schools that kids typically consider also? And then you shut up, and then you let the admissions officer or the department head or whomever you're asking, you let them explain the difference, let them sell the school to you. And that, from a psychological standpoint, I think is kind of neat, but just from an informational standpoint, you're going to probably hear things. Maybe if you're talking to a department head, they may say something that surprises you because it's not necessarily a sales pitch for you to come there. They may tell you, well, you should consider other schools. So that's one of my favorite questions, but it takes a certain level of cojones to ask it that way, at least. All right, step 5 is intern. When is now the best time to start lining up your first internship? That's a joke, not a typo. because now is the best time to start lining up an internship, because internships are critical. They are either as or more critical than where you went to college. I'll repeat that. They could be as critical as where you go to college, maybe even more critical. The best leads for the best internships come from either people you're in school with or upperclassmen. Understand that employers are now looking more to internships than any other source. Certainly not resumes that get sent through LinkedIn or something. The average is that employers, 50% of new hires come from the pool of people who interned for that particular employer. In some fields, it's like 75%. So that's a big, big reason to start thinking about internships as early as summer after freshman year. This is common sense, but I feel it's worth talking to you guys about. Cities offer more generally in terms of options and opportunities. So picking a school in an urban or near an urban location might be better for internships. If you don't go to a school that's in an urban location, that's fine. Just understand you're going to have to probably work harder to get internships. LinkedIn has a tool called University Finder. I've only played around with it a little bit, but let's say you're interested in majoring in business, and you were looking to go to live in, I don't know, Philadelphia. So you could search that in LinkedIn and match up the pool of employers who recruit business majors in Philadelphia, and then you can find out what colleges they're pulling kids out of. So I thought that was a neat little trick that I want to share with you guys. Some other stuff here. Okay, less academic, but probably more important. You have to learn the soft skills. You have to learn how to communicate. Charlie Munger, in that speech that I mentioned to you before, says one of the most valuable things he ever figured out was that when he's talking to people, understand that they have their own agenda. They're looking at whatever you're talking about, whatever issue you're discussing, through their own lens, which may or may not be the same thing as what's on your agenda or what you want to tell them. So understand everyone has self-interest. That's not bad. It's not good. It just is. Your opinion and your agenda may not be everyone's opinion and everyone's agenda. Silly, but I think it's important. It's so important to develop your own network, and that can either be from the people that you go to school with, but not necessarily. It can also be the people that you work or you intern with. That may even be more important. Where you intern can be at least as important as where you went to school. And so, in other words, let's say you got an internship at Google. Well, what that symbolizes to people who, let's say you're looking somewhere else to work, what that symbolizes to the new potential employer is that you were vetted at a very high level by Google, and that can be more powerful than graduating from a top school with a huge, with a very high GPA. And along those lines, Google no longer even looks at GPA anymore. They just ask a bunch of standardized, but very open-ended, hard questions to answer, and evaluate people based on their ability to think on their feet and all that. My niece went through that. She told me some crazy questions that she was asked, and she ended up at Google. So just understand that's why where you intern can seriously matter more than where you went to school. That is about it. So now we're going to stop for a few questions, and then we're going to move on with the rest of today's episode.